Hello, my name is Jim Szafranski, and I'm excited to share some experiences and lessons I've learned around organizing and instrumenting a product-led growth strategy. I'm the COO of Prezi today. And I'm going to start with 3 keys that I've experienced work great for trying to do this. The first is to have a user-centric strategy. I'll share more what I mean by that, but really make sure your strategy is articulated in a way that's very user-facing. Second is to have connected and accessible analytics that help you understand where you are in implementing the strategy and impacting the users the way you intended to. And the third is to make sure you're organized for pace. Right? Are you moving quickly in product to achieve this strategy and help your users succeed and ultimately your business grow? I'll spend a little bit more time on each of these here. So as an example for a user-centric strategy, here would be an example that I'd say is user-centric. It's closer to home. It's a made-up example, say, for Prezi, which is like our strategy is to grow by helping people share engaging visual stories through easy-to-reuse content and video. Now, as a counterexample, if I had more, let's say, a business-centric articulation, our strategy is to grow 32% by decreasing time to value and expanding into the video marketplace. Let's look at some of the kind of contrast between these. So on this more business-centric statement, understanding what the value for the user is, it's kind of hard. I guess there's something around time to value in there, but what are they achieving? Why did they didn't show up at my website for time to value? They showed up at my company trying to achieve something. Did they get it? It's not really articulated in that, right? There's an example in here like expanding into video. Why? Why is that good? To what impact, right? And so this statement's it's a strategy in some ways, but it's too generic, in my opinion, to be to be crisp, to lead crisp product-led growth, right? There's a lot to be interpreted in there. Whereas if we go over here to the more user-centric side of things, the user success is pretty clear, right? The user's success is if they can share engaging visual stories. Super clear, right? The product strategy is pretty clear too. How do we want to help them do that? We want to help them do it through reuse of content and video, let's say. So now it doesn't necessarily talk about specific growth goals of 32% as an example or something like that, but the growth, if you've got user success clear and the way you're trying to drive it through your product, if those things are clear, the growth will be pretty easy to drive on top of the user success through sales and marketing and things like that. So I wouldn't burden the product with necessarily a percentage growth number. I would focus, if you want to be product-led on your growth, make sure user success is clear, the product strategy is clear, and you have a user-centric strategy articulation. So the second area I thought would be useful to share some ideas on is also on having connected and accessible analytics. What do we mean by this? A couple key things. One, I think you need clear KPIs describing the business and the user journey. What I've seen often is you have one or the other, or they're not connected. It's nice to have a set of KPIs that do both. Another thing is to really make sure if you're going to have product-led growth, you're probably growing on the backs of user success, as we just talked about. What does that mean? Are the users getting what they want? What do they even want? You should understand that and continuously understand it. And then thirdly, obviously, if you know these things, make sure this data is available to all and that the team has the skills to use it. This is kind of an obvious statement, but it takes investment, right? And so don't just assume it's going to happen. As leaders, I think you need to make sure that not just do you have the data, but you have also the skills to use it. I'm going to go a little bit more into detail on the KPIs and the user intent side of things. So in the KPIs, again, my idea here to share would be that you really want to make sure you can describe enough about your business and the user journey in a set of KPIs that you've agreed on and created. So I'll share a bit of a framework against how we do it here at Prezi. For instance, We have kind of 5 high-level key buckets. Prezi is a very viral product experience, right? And so a lot of our kind of KPIs start there, right? And running all the way through a more classic sort of user funnel, and also what we're trying to achieve in our org. And so I just put some examples of, like, we call this kind of first tier. Let's say there's about a dozen or so key first tier KPIs. Again, if I focus on that viral loop side of things like our users sharing, is that driving visitors back to Prezi? Are those visitors signing up, right? And so we have a set of key KPIs that we agree on. The other thing that's important is I know it's nice to say you have 6 KPIs for the whole business, but the business is probably more complex than that and more broad than that, right? And so the way we handle that is basically we have a second tier, right? They can go into more details. As an example here, if we're talking about the visitors, well, there's things about the visitors that matter, right? What geo are they coming from, right? What segment are they? Are they students or business users or government or things like that, right? In addition to just the visitors, what's happening to those visitors? Are they bouncing? Are they returning? So some really key kind of things that matter into the quality and the impact of what we're doing around this area that we try to articulate. And even beyond that, we even have a third tier. And this is where we can get more really precise around user or product or process level details. Maybe really important to the team, probably not something you can spend time on communicating, let's say, to the board or in the all hands meetings, where you have to come up to the first tier, maybe point to the second tier for some examples of success. But so this does take work, but I think it's extremely value creating if you can actually describe your business in a set of KPIs. There's a mixture in here of both sort of business. We have things like monetization and user journey, like WA2, weekly active usage, or trial starts, and things like that. Second key thing here on this analytics point from myself here is the more you understand about your users and their intent, the more you're going to be able to drive user success, as I said. And if that's really where the growth comes from, especially in a product-led strategy. And so my experience here is the more you can do this continuously and progressive, the more success you're probably going to have. What do I mean by that kind of continuous and progressive user profiling? Well, for instance, let's say you have a web-based product acquisition. The first day, the visitor, potentially new user sign up, came from somewhere. Let's say it's a referral from Google, or they came from a direct marketing campaign hit, right? And you know what they clicked on when they showed up. So you know something about these users. That's good. You should use it, right? Use what you have as that user experience progresses, and also try to build on it. What I mean by that, let's say that user's in a trial, and learn more during that next week, right? Give them what they want based on what you knew, came from, clicked on, but then learn more. What segment are they from, right? Are they, if you have a broad business, are they from an education segment or a government segment or a business segment? Or if you have a narrower business, maybe what verticals? What are their interests? What brought them here? I know where they came from, what they clicked on, but why did you come? Start trying to learn that, right? And as you continue to do this, right, you have the opportunity over the coming months and year to not just improve the experience the user's having by personalization, but also to deepen what they're doing in your product, creating more value, right? And so I think this is hard to do, but I think it's a really important way if you want to be kind of product-led growth, not even just here at the beginning of the user experience, right, in the first day or first week, but also over time as the user invests more and progresses with you. How do you keep giving them more and deepening their experience with you? So then on the kind of the third area for organizing and instrumenting a product-led growth, my third key area to offer is you got to organize for pace also, because now you have a user-centric strategy. You've got KPIs and analytics and user understanding to know how you're doing against it. Now you got to do it, or you got to execute. I think in this experience, what I would suggest, especially when you're talking about growth, is you want to be able to move fast. You want to keep trying things. You got to be faster than your competitors. You got to move with your user interests, right? And now organizations can be very complex. And my advice here is keep it simple, right? Two key things I've experienced if you're trying to move fast, right? One, make sure specific teams have a North Star metric so that they can target their impact and simplify their learning. And two, you take advantage of cross-functional teams so that when you release things in your product, you have a good user experience that's kind of complete, thought through from the top of the funnel all the way through to product usage, right? If you're doing these two things, I think that will create a lot of pace, right? Pace around impact, pace around learning, and pace for your users to experience your ideas. So clicking in a little bit more on the North Star metric, I think, wait a second, I just kind of introduced a really rigorous KPI structure. How do you do North Star and that? And I think the KPI structure was really meant to codify and understand the business. It doesn't necessarily mean each team should be working on all of it, right? Actually, conversely, ideally, this would allow you to have a team focus on one key area during a particular initiative, or maybe even for their charter for a long period of time, right? But it's pretty key to, in order to target impact and simplify the learning, to pick one. And so as examples, like let's say I have a team early in the user journey, right? More on how the users how we're collecting and finding these users, creating interest, consideration from them. Then probably the North Star metric I would be trying to do around that would be something similar to like a lifetime value per visitor, right? Something early in the user experience. So let's say maybe more mid user experience where the user's in product. I might be focused more around daily active use on the second day. That's still even kind of early. Maybe mid is weekly active use, right? Things like that. Now, maybe later in the user experience, it's more about monthly active use or things like that. So I think the key here is just make sure you pick, like know where you are in your user journey, and you can pluck metrics, frankly, hopefully out of your agreed to company KPIs, pluck the right one for that team. A second kind of key thing for pace, in my experience, is be as cross-functional as you can. Especially in these kind of growth-oriented things where you need to move fast, keep trying ideas. This is a structure. This is a very comprehensive approach here. I probably guess most teams won't have all of this, but what I've seen with growth charter teams and on the product side is the more they are cross-functional like this, where you have marketing, product management, design, data, and engineering all represented, and all essentially captive to that North Star metric and that growth goal, you're going to really improve, not just, you're going to improve the user experience, which is just going to allow you to go faster, right? Rather than have to iterate on an idea. Oh, well, we got it right in product, but we missed the marketing aspect, or we got the marketing, but we missed the product, or, if you have this breadth, the whole user experience can be taken care of on your kind of first release, and you're going to understand if it's going to drive growth or not. So that's the three key steps, three key kind of aspects to, in my opinion, if you want to organize and instrument yourself for product-led growth strategy. If you're doing these three things, you're going to have a pretty darn good chance of basically impacting the business, basically driving user success. And if you're driving user success, you can drive the growth on top of that. That's the easy part. And I think if you think a little bit more kind of at a foundational level, why is that growth happening? I think, ultimately the continuous learning that's happening if you're doing these three things is constantly being reflected in the product experience, right? And a better product experience is going to make a healthier business. And I think a key then is you're going to be driving growth based on a sustainable kind of user success and cumulative user success that will continue to pay dividends even in later on down the line as you try to expand, offer new products and things like that. So I sure hope that you found these three keys to product-led growth for instrumenting, organizing yourselves on it, valuable. Hopefully there's seeds for you of ideas to impact your business. And if you have any other feedback or questions for me, probably the easiest thing to do is to find me here on LinkedIn. I appreciate the time, and have a great day.